Hello there, and welcome back. I can't believe it's time for the end of the year review episode already. Where has 2024 gone? So, in this episode, we'll be sharing some of our personal favourites that didn't make it onto the podcast. Books that we think deserve a spot on your reading list anyway, in case you haven't checked them out already. We'll break down what we loved about each one and why we think you might enjoy them too. So get your pen and paper ready, and let's join Katrina, Kay, and Taiwo for some great recommendations.
Anyhow, yes, so I guess we should start today's episode. So we are talking about books, but not any specific book in particular, and what we've been reading, and also just to recommend. I don't have a specific agenda. I just thought it would be nice just to sit down and talk about books without specifically focusing on a particular book.
She's always flying by the seat of her pants, always.
What you're saying is basically I'm always just making things up as I go along.
Yes. I'm doing it so well. Well, I've got a book. I've got a book I've started reading. First? Don't know whether you can see the title.
No.
Tanya Huff.
A more.
Why don't you read it out to us?
Because Taiwo, listeners can't see your screen, right?
A More Perfect Union.
Okay.
Historical fiction. I'm only into chapter 10 now. And the book is interesting. I mean, it's not groundbreaking or earth-shattering. It's just, it's got an added layer, I guess. So it's three main individuals. There's Henry O'Toole fleeing the Irish famine, potato famine. And there's Sarah, an enslaved woman. And then there's Maple, who was given as a wedding present to her sister or her half-sister. Maple could pass for white. She's that fair in complexion. And it's the interaction of the three. So it's kind of like they're rotating or swapping around the chapters and all the rest of it, and it's going over a period of time. So at the moment, it's too early for me to know where things are going. I'm only at chapter 10, but it's very easy reading. Reviews seem to be pretty good. I think it's Tammy Huff's first book, so debut novelist, and it's very accessible. Oh, I'm still trying to finish off Black Box Thinking, The Surprising Truth About Success and Why Some People Never Learn from Their Mistakes.
Okay, and what have you learned from it?
That I know nothing. It's not the most fun read, but I guess it's non-fiction, so I kind of read it in dribs and drabs. Maybe I need to be a bit more serious and just suck it up and just try and finish it off, put it to one side. But I get distracted too easily.
With Stephen King?
No, actually, I'm still putting off reading Holly, because it's Holly that I've got on my list of Stephen Kings to read next. So I'm looking forward to it, but sometimes it's the anticipation and expectation that is even almost as good as the actuality itself. So yeah, Holly is on the way.
Are you kind of like saving it for Christmas or something?
Not saving it, savoring the anticipation of reading it. But anyway, I've got to read this month's book before I start messing around with other books, and that won't come in the library until later this week. It's in transit.
Okay, so would you recommend any of the books that you've read then?
Yeah, I would recommend the one that I'm reading now, A More Perfect Union. It's very easy to read. It's not a long book as well. Each chapter is pretty short, and they're not a lot of characters. They're not a lot of them, and it's not too heavy on because sometimes when it's not Marlon James where he's going into great detail about the horrific nature of punishments or tortures and all the rest. It's not that heavy and graphic, so that it's slavery days and it's a slavery tale, but there are other elements to it, and I like that the whole Irish element coming into it, and this guy leaving Ireland then and arriving in America at that time and not really understanding the social hierarchy and the way in which but realizing that there are lots of, when he arrives, there are lots of places where there are signs up just saying no Irish, we're not hiring Irish. So yeah, he faces a lot of discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
It is quite violent, but not violent in a Marlon James way, not graphic violent, but they are violent. Violent. You can see the violence of the way of life of the Americans. Although I guess you could say nothing has really changed in America, the land of the free.
Free?
Mm, allegedly.
It's the land of the free for some.
Yeah, well, nothing's changed, has it?
I'll come back to you, Taiwo. Katrina, what have you been reading? I know you recommended A Gentleman in Moscow, which I've bought. I haven't read it yet, but
Well, I read that. That was a few months ago now, though, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yes, I enjoyed it a lot. I liked it because it just rolls along nice and gently. It's just very, very gentle. And the idea, it's about a man who's confined to a hotel as a sort of house arrest, but he's quite rich and he's still got some money stashed away that the Russian authorities don't, the Soviet don't realize that he had, I suppose. So he can live reasonably well, but he can't set foot outside of his hotel. And he's only like in his 30s. So it's kind of interesting how he copes with the change in his lifestyle because he's used to running around and courting young ladies that he meets in passing in coffee shops and such like, and sort of, but he decides he has to master his circumstances. So I found it interesting in that respect anyway. What I've read much more recently, though, it's more of a picture book than anything else. I read the review and thought I should buy it because it was being sold by The Guardian and I never contribute to them. So I thought perhaps I should contribute by buying through them. It's called Led by Donkeys. You know the group?
yeah.
Yes. Well, I've never actually donated to them, and I don't donate as I should to The Guardian. So I thought if I buy the book through The Guardian, that'll be a sort of step towards them. And I have to say that there were a lot of things that that I didn't realise went back to them and their work. So I found it really interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and I recommend that. And of course, I've got the book that I said I'd recommend, A Bookshop in Algiers. It sort of puts together a story about the love of books through the story of a particular publisher who lived in Algiers, a French person, but who is that's the sort of history. But it puts it together with the actual history of Algeria that was going on concurrently. And it's very interesting the way the author Kuta Adimi has written it because she has the bookshop is the center of it all, and in her book, which isn't I think actually true, the bookshop is being closed down. It originally belonged in the 1930s. It was started by this man who published Camus and Gide and other people who I'm not very familiar with, but I guess if you're a French speaker, you would be. The story is all around this bookshop, but then I th- at some point it was taken over by the Algerian National Library, and it's supposed to be a small little annex. And it's looked after by this guy Abdullah, who's an old man who he reads Arabic. He doesn't very easily read the Latin script, but he has a massive reverence for books. And he's an important character. But the bookshop's going to be sold off, apparently, the library getting rid of it. And the person who's taking it over, he's going to gut it and make it into a cake shop. So, a young man who lives in Paris who needs a job as an intern through linking family friends, he's sent to chuck out all the books. He's given instructions, just put them in black bags, bin them, get rid of them. It's just written in such a nice way because, like, the neighborhood who don't really care about the bookshop for the sake of books, but they care about it because it's part of their neighborhood and they don't want their neighborhood disturbed, and out of loyalty to this old man. Anyway, I found it quite amusing. But all through at the same time, it's like a made up diary of the publisher that is giving his life through and his ambitions with the publishing bookshop as in first person, because it's done in a diarized form. And also interspersed with it are the rebellions and the resistance and the fighting that's going on in Algeria. So it's clever the way it's all linked in together. So I recommend it.
Sorry, Taiwo, you have your hands up.
I wanted to ask Katrina, is there no magical realism in it?
Why?
I didn't spot it.
It's got to have a bit of magical realism, surely. Just a little bit.
No, well, there's invented diaries, and the bookshop, I think, is actually still there in some form or another. I don't think it actually has been sold off.
So you're trying to tell us that the
So
bookshop is
there's
not some kind of
imagination.
portal. It's not a portal to another world. It's, nothing else is going on.
I'll have to look at it again.
The fact that it doesn't have any magical realism, does that mean that you don't want to read it now?
Yeah. What do you think? I just don't understand what these authors nowadays are. When was it written anyway? Is it an old book?
No, it's written in French. It was published in 2017 and then published in English in 2020.
Ah, okay, I've understood what's happened. It's the translation. It's been lost in translation.
Oh yes, probably you must be right.
The magical realism has been lost in translation. That's what's happened.
Right. Okay. So Taiwo.
Oh, I forgot to mention. I just finished reading The Color Purple. I've never read it before.
Okay. And your views?
Yeah, I thought it was really good. And the way it's in the form of letters. So I had absolutely no idea that was. I mean, I kept reading it. I wanted to see whether these two sisters would be reunited, and also the complexity of it and how it all kind of it comes round full circle. And her sister going to Africa I'm not sure whether it was Liberia or somewhere. Was it Liberia? Okay, yeah. And her
Sorry, Kay
adventures
is
there.
nodding. Kay, you can't speak, Kay.
Sorry, there's just lots of noise in the background. I'm just moving lots of things around, so I'm listening as you're talking, and I didn't want to interrupt you. I remember from the film it's Liberia. It's where the Americans or slaves from America went back to Liberia. So I know there's this whole.
Isn't there even a musical now?
Of The Color Purple.
Yeah, I think there
Probably.
is a
Be
musical.
made as a film. Well, I think at the time in that era it was written, there's this whole movement of going back to Africa, which is essentially was just going to Liberia and maybe doing some missionary work or something like historically. Did you have you seen the film? How did you find it
No,
compared to the film?
I haven't seen the film.
Well, I haven't seen the play. I haven't read the book.
You haven't seen the film? Is that what you said, Jackie?
I haven't seen the film, read the book, or even seen the play. Because of what I've heard about it, I've just always been put off because I just think it's just going to be so harrowing.
I have read the book, but it's so long ago that I've got only a very residual memory of the whole thing. I enjoyed it at the time, and I have seen the film, but it wasn't how I'd imagined it. I'd imagined it fairly differently, I think, to what I saw on the film. But no, I enjoyed the book, but it is too long ago for me to make much comment of it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those books I've read not all the way to the end. I've definitely seen the film. I think you should watch it, Jackie. I think you'd be surprised.
Yeah?
I think you would. I think it's
Is this the one that Oprah Winfrey made?
she's in it.
Okay.
She's in it. And it was the one, I think was it directed by Spielberg?
Yes.
And there was I think the complaint at the time is he shouldn't be telling that story. But I have to say, I wouldn't say it's like one of my most favourite films, but there are some scenes in there which are really moving, and the ending is like quite uplifting in a kind of Hollywood type of way. So I think you'd be surprised if you were to watch the film.
Okay. And have you read the book yourself?
I think I've started it, but I've never finished it.
So how did the book then compare with the film? Well, at least the bits that you've read. Did you find it was a better experience to actually to watch the film rather than read the book?
Probably. I'd wonder if I was to read it now whether I'd enjoy the book more. But I didn't mind the film, so I quite enjoyed the film, and it's against type. I thought it's like Whoopi Goldberg's in there, and she plays the main character.
Okay.
But that's what I remember. I think in the book, correct me if I'm wrong, Taiwo, he has like an affair with the woman, the main character, Shug and Celia.
Well, he wanted to marry Celia's younger sister, didn't he? But
No, I'm saying in the book there's like a lesbian affair, right?
yeah,
I think that's
Celia,
one.
Celia and Sug, is it
Right.
Suggs or Shugs or what's her name? Shug.
Yeah, but I think in the film that's downplayed. So there are elements of it that were sanitized for film. That's the difference.
Okay. I might watch it. Sorry, Katrina, we interrupted you. I think.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay, cool. So you finished with the recommendations.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, what have you been reading?
What have I been reading? So at the moment, I've got Tell Me Everything, which is the new Elizabeth Strout book,
Okay.
which I haven't started, but I will read because I've read all her books. I really like her. So I want to kind of get my teeth into that one. I'm reading Before the Coffee Gets Cold, slightly magical realism, Japanese literature, about a coffee shop where you can go back in time. But actually, it's not too bad. It's more thought-provoking than kind of reveling in the magical realism of the story. So that's okay for me. But other books, I'm just thinking about other things that I've read that I'd really enjoy. So obviously we spoke about Sufferer, which I really enjoyed. I've read this book as well. What You Are Looking For Is in the Library.
By who?
Hold on one second, I'm going to tell you.
It's always funny. You read books and then you don't actually remember who the author is.
So I've got into the habit of writing down the titles, but I haven't always written down the authors. So What You're Looking For Is in the Library. Also a Japanese author. I don't know why, maybe it's because you pick up one and then you pick up another, but I just seem to be seeing a lot of like kind of Japanese and Korean literature at the moment.
I think they're quite big in publishing right now.
They are. I think they are. And there's another book I read as well, which was recommended to me, called Kim Jung, born 1982. But What You Were Looking For in the Library, What You Were Looking For Is in the Library. I will find the title, but it's about these people who are facing these kind of moments of crises in their life, and they all end up at this library talking to this particular librarian who recommends a book for them to read, and that book ends up being quite profound for them. It's told in quite a whimsical way, like it's quite fun, and she's a bit of a character. She gives them a book, but then they find some deeper meaning in the book, and they overcome the challenge they were facing in their life. And it's not like these long tomes. It's like, for one person, she recommends a children's book. But it's quite nice, and I think the point of it is just the impact books can have. But I'd recommend that if anybody kind of wants a quick read that's enjoyable, and there's a deeper meaning in there.
Michiko Aoyama.
Machiko, okay. Yeah. I'm gonna give a plug for a book called For Such a Time as This. I'll give it a plug because I know her.
How do you know her?
She'd just come join the civil service when I was there in the civil service. It was a number of years ago. I met her. I think she'd come in like on an intern type role, and I remember talking to her. Thought, yeah, she's super bright, what so have you. We crossed paths a few years later. She's got an interesting backstory. She kind of fundraised. She did her master's, I think, in Africa studies. I've maybe got that wrong. She's very good on social media anyway. She fundraised her fees for her master's at Oxford. Yeah, entirely for online donations. And then she became a bit of a Instagram famous during lockdown. I think she did something like she organised her entire library by colour code, and it was very eye-catching. And then she has a book club. But anyway, she's done it. She's done the thing that many people think about but can never maybe do. Is she wrote her first book. I know she counts Bernardine Evaristo as a mentor. So it's interesting. It's a nice read. It's just about the lives and loves of a group of friends. Each story is standalone, but they're all kind of interconnected in some way. Maybe aimed at a bit of a younger age group.
Oh, it's fiction.
Sorry?
It's fiction.
Yeah, it's fiction.
Oh wow! I thought from the title, I was thinking it was non-fiction.
But it's a nice read, and there's a story in there about someone who's during COVID is having some troubles in her workplace. And I think some of that book might be a little bit autobiographical, only because she may or may not have talked to me about some of those things before. And she seems to be doing well for herself, so kind of good luck to her. Other books, I'll just mention maybe one or two more and then I'll stop. Long Island, I really enjoyed that, by Colm Tobin. It's the follow-up to Brooklyn, about a young girl who migrates from Ireland to the US. It was a book and then it was actually quite a good film. So yeah, that's the follow-up, which I quite enjoyed. As strong as Brooklyn, I'm not sure, the first book, but I did enjoy that. And then another book I was thinking of, but I don't know if you guys ever read this in the book club, maybe in the years I wasn't there. But did you ever read a book called At Night, All Blood is Black?
No.
I would recommend this book. I'd probably want to get in early and put it on the book list.
Is that the one about the soldier, the French? Okay.
Yeah, by David Jopp. At Night, All Blood is Black. It's a Senegalese soldier. He's fighting for the French in the First World War, and yeah, he's it's about this guy's kind of slow descent into madness.
Mm-hmm.
And the blurb at the back says, "At night, all blood is black" is a hypnotic, heartbreaking rendering of a mind hurtling towards madness. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting this. Like books that kind of lull you in and then shock you at the end. I thought it was just such a great read. You
mean a bit like a Stephen King?
I don't think I've ever been lulled by a Stephen King book, but
You've not been reading the right books out of his whole 70 books plus.
I read Stephen King a long time ago. I've read like The Green Mile, those types of books. I enjoyed that one. But yeah, At Night, All Blood is Black by David Jopp. I would just definitely recommend it as a. I think it should be up there. I really do. Like it's. There's lots of literature about the First World War, and we know about the poetry and the people who've kind of written forcefully about that time. And I think this is probably one of those books which captures like the horror and the savagery of the time as well. But again, you're following this character and he kind of lulls you in, and it's, yeah, I'd really recommend it. I'll pause there.
So Jackie J, as a Guardian lover, this is one that should be on the list, because when it came out, I remember reading it in the Guardian and they gave it really good reviews.
Okay, no worries. It's on the list. The other thing is whether people vote for it. Last year, right, we had a choice between the biographies. We had a choice between Kelechi, Small by Small, and Afua Hirsch, right? And Afua Hirsch won by one vote. And I was just thinking, should I just really rig this? Because I really want to read Small by Small.
I've never even heard of it, Small by Small.
So Small by Small is by Ike Anya. Ike is the guy that did TEDx Houston. You did come to TEDx Houston, one of the TEDx Houston.
I did. Yeah, it was really good, wasn't it? I went, yeah.
Yeah, so he's one of the organizers. He was one of the organizers of TEDx Houston. He's a doctor. And the Small by Small is basically his story of, qualifying as a doctor in Nigeria and then coming to the UK, and then basically just his experience working in the NHS and the kind of things that they went through. Probably be a really good book to read, because there are a lot of Black people in the health system. I mean, they keep it going, they keep it running, but we don't really read very much about it. So that's why I thought Small by Small would be a really good book to read. I'm still going to get it. I just haven't got around to it yet. And I'm still going to read it. And I'm still going to add it to this year's list and see whether or not people vote for it. But yeah.
You allow people to vote for all 12 books, right?
Yeah.
Can you not have a like the founder's choice?
A casting vote.
You can give yourself a casting vote, or just call if there's
If there's
like
a draw, then yeah, normally I'll just cast the final vote. I'll choose. But I try to be fair, because that's what people want to read. And this is the other thing, because you want to encourage people to also come to the book club. So you want to
Yeah.
put on the list things that people actually do want to read. So that's why I try not to rig the vote.
You try.
Oh, I thought you were going to think you're a nice person, but okay.
It's because she's Ugandan. She's Ugandan. You
What's
see,
that got to do with it?
If she were
What's
Nigerian,
that?
she wouldn't even blink. She'd just rig it and she wouldn't even tell us.
There is has anybody? I did come across one book, but it looks like it's like huge, and I probably need to psych myself up, but I think it could be interesting. A book called The Abbey Project: God, Power, and War in the new Ethiopia.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's still hardcover. I think it's got quite a number of this is so shallow, but I think I kind of looked at the number of pages and thought, oh gosh, not now. Okay, not bad. Okay. It's 368, less than I remember. But basically it's about Abiy Ahmed and how a couple of years ago this guy was getting a Nobel Peace Prize.
Look where he is now. Yeah, that sounds like a good read.
I'd definitely put it forward then.
So the categories are poems, biography or memoir, contemporary fiction, classic fiction, and short stories. Yeah, I did want to come back to UK. What is it about Elizabeth Struck that you like, that you've read all her books?
Well, she's created a bit of a world, hasn't she? All her books somehow not explicitly, but they all touch on one another in some way. Like there's an environment, I think it's set in like Maine. I just like her style of writing. I think that's it. And I think the book she's perhaps most well known for is Olive Kitteridge, which I still think is just an excellent book. It's about this kind of cantankerous old woman in Maine who is she's abrasive and she's pushed lots of people away, but you kind of get behind the character and you understand her life, her loves and her loss a bit more. I think I just like the way she writes. And she's got, her latest book is Tell Me Everything. So I'd be interested to find out which character this touches on. I think the first book of hers I read is My Name is Lucy Barton, about a woman who grew up in a family which, it wasn't a very pleasant experience, but she's gone on to be successful. She's just reflecting on the impact that had on her. But yeah, she's got this whole world. I know she's like one of Oprah's favourites. I haven't held that against her. She's my Stephen King. Like whenever her books come out, I'll always want to go and read one of her books. And Sally Rooney has just got one out as well. And I'm less of a. It's so strange. I'm less of a Sally Rooney fan, but I still just probably I want to read the book.
I've never read Sally Rooney or Elizabeth Strout, but you've convinced me to pick up an Elizabeth Strout book.
Start with Olive Kitteridge. Like I'd recommend that book. I think that's a great route in, and I think it's just a really good character.
And all her books are based in Maine.
In and around, the characters come from Maine. They come from that part, and she's not created this kind of like white picket fence view of Maine. She's like telling it as it is and what's going on there now. But that's the link. That's the thread that's running through all the books. All the characters have either spent time there, they've come back from there in some way.
So, Katrina, what's your Stephen King book then, or Stephen King author?
Who are you talking to, Jackie?
Katrina, sorry, did you not hear me?
Hmm. No, I didn't hear you properly.
I was just asking who the Stephen King author is, someone you return to again and again.
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm more down the magical realism road. I'd reread things like Pullman, but I don't read all of his. But the book of the Northern Lights books, and I'm eagerly awaiting the third book of Dust.
What is it about Philip Pullman? Yeah, I've met somebody else who just like they're the books as far as he's concerned. So tell us
He
about
likes
them.
or doesn't.
No, he loves them. Like he's read all of them. So
They're more aimed for children, young adults, but and the character in the first book is about 10 or 11, no, a little bit older than that. Let's say 12, 13. Um, but I suppose I find that with other authors is like Rowling's, as they carry on with the series, they get more serious and it gets more adult. I quite like these alternate worlds, and they allow they allow the author to explore things in a different way, don't they? Because you're making new concepts. And of course with the idea that your soul, if you like, is external to you in these little animals that you
Oh,
can.
is this the Dark Materials guy?
Oh, dark materials, that's it. Yes, I
Oh,
never
right.
remember what
Okay.
it's called, but yes, I think the concept's quite interesting because then you've got the first trilogy, and now the books of dust. The main character is sort of divorced from her soul, because she and her sort of companion animal type thing they've got so much of a disagreement about different things as she's growing up, and because she's like just like graduating from university at that age, and she's been reading stuff that he thinks is complete rubbish. And it's sort of interesting because I suppose you could look at it in a psychological way of how our personalities, sometimes we get led in different directions away from our ideals maybe. So I just find it's quite interesting, and it's just a good story. I mean, if you like it, it's a good story. If you don't like that sort of thing in different worlds, then you'll hate it, but I like.
It's a demon, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but you've got to explain what that is, don't haven't you? Because it's more like your soul or your spirit in the way we usually describe those things, I suppose. Jackie, you haven't told us anything about your books, have you?
No, I haven't gotten there yet. But before before I come to my books, are you guys going to be queuing up to get the new Chimamanda book? After
Hey,
yes.
years, she's
is
yeah,
that Jemima book coming out?
it's coming out next year. It's called
Really?
Dream. What is it? Dream Count,
Okay.
and it's due March 2025. So yeah,
There seems to be like a whole bunch of authors who have maybe towards the end of COVID were writing. And there just seemed like the past year, I think there have been lots of really established authors with their next book. So for me, that was like the Contour Bean, Long Island, Chimamanda's coming out. I've spoken about Elizabeth Strout, Sally Rooney. Maybe I've not paid attention to it before, and actually this is perfectly normal. But there have been a few authors who people have been waiting for a particular book, and they're all
finally published something.
yeah, well, yeah, maybe the creative juices are flowing again or something like that.
So, please, is there any indication of what it's about? Any idea?
I think it's four friends. It follows four friends, What does it say?
Alone in the midst of the So isn't Zakora a character we've met before?
I don't know.
Yeah, we have. She's written a book, one of her short stories. I'm sure she wrote a short story, and the character was Zakora.
It's an exploration of the very nature of love itself, apparently.
Yeah, 5 out of 5.
Wow, I thought I was bad.
I don't know. Do you know what it is? Like, I can't.
Were you not
remember
disappointed with
the last-
Americana, though?
No, what do you mean by disappointed?
What? No way.
I thought Americana was her weakest book.
I thought it was her most Nigerian book.
No, Half of a Yellow Sun is the most Nigerian of Nigerian books ever.
Nah,
Ever.
no way.
Really?
Some of the expressions that she uses in Americana, some of the things that she says, that she gets her characters to say, I feel as if, and the language used as well, I felt as if, only a Nigerian or someone that's lived in Nigeria would really, unless maybe you're based in Nigeria and you hear these expressions on the street or, amongst maybe a peer group or something like that. It just resonated with me in a way that so many other Nigerian authors have not. And I don't know why. Also, that kind of immigrant experience or migrant experience where when I've forgotten his name now, the love of her life,
Oh, yeah, I know who you mean.
because she goes to America, doesn't she? But he goes to London, and his experiences in London before he then gets deported, and how that impacts him. I just felt it seemed to me as if she was touching parts of the immigrant experience, especially the Nigerian or maybe even African immigrant experience, that aren't really delved into all that much or all that well.
Mm.
So for me, it really did resonate. I felt it was just such a good book.
It was a good story, but for me, I just felt it was one of her weakest.
No, not for me.
So Zakora is a short story that she wrote. So I wonder if it's the same character that she's following.
Well, it'll be interesting to find out. We'll find out in March. So should I be adding her onto the list for next year then?
Yeah, here's the thing, right? You've got this hardcover, don't want to get people to buy hardcover rule that you have.
Yeah, which is a good rule.
But you know people are going to buy the hardcover for her books.
True, very true.
No.
So you can add it for like June next year.
Yeah, maybe. Just, give people like a bit of time.
Get libraries a chance to get it.
Absolutely.
Get library returns. I like hardcovers from time to time, not usually, but I was in Sainsbury's like a couple of days ago. I've got some hardcover books in there for like a tenner if people want to buy them and want to get them at a good discount. So, yeah.
What, a tenner is a discount?
You don't remember Yvonne complaining about decolonizing my body and how she paid £20 for it?
For that book? Really?
But she got the pictures.
She wasn't impressed with the pictures.
Well, I got it on Kindle and I didn't get the pictures, so...
No, you needed to see the pictures, to be honest. You needed it as part of the package.
Yeah.
Is that what moved you?
So what have I been reading? I think I started the year off with Sandy Toksvig and Between the Stops. It's a really good book. I really enjoyed it. I want to go back and read it again because there's so many interesting facts in there. It's funny, this year for me has been a bit of a feminist theme. And so she talks about women who history has neglected in London. And so Between the Stops, she's basically talking about the stops that she takes from her house in Dulwich all the way to the BBC in White City, in Oxford Street. So every stop she basically writes about something interesting that happened there, but also she also writes about her experiences in different countries because she's kind of international. She writes about growing up, her childhood, and it's just really fascinating. She's a fascinating woman, so I really enjoyed that and I would really recommend it. And then the other one that I keep going back to when life is just really stressing me out is Kai Miller's collection of poems. It's a very small book. It's called The Cartographer Tries to Map a Way to Zion. And I love Kai Miller anyway. I like how he writes. But this collection of poems, I just read it and I just feel calm after reading it. I just pick up an odd poem out of it, and then I'll just sit there and I'll read it, and then I'll reflect on it. Then I'll just feel calm and go back to my work. So I definitely recommend it. I mean, Kai Miller is a great writer anyway. So, and I've probably told you all about Doppelganger. It's non-fiction, and it's a really good book, but it's also a struggle. It's one of those books that you feel like, well, at least I feel like I have to make time to read it because I want to understand it properly. And Doppelganger is by Naomi Klein, who wrote it because people were confusing her with Naomi Wolf, and their views are absolutely opposed. Naomi Klein is very liberal. Naomi Wolf is friends with Steve Bannon. It's always on his podcasts. But for some reason, people are always confusing them and conflating them on Twitter. And then that's how it starts off. And that's how she started writing the book. But then actually, it goes on now to talking about the split in society between the left and the right, the liberals and the far right, and how that's come about and how it's impacting our relationships with each other, and how all these right-wing groups and influencers have somehow managed to take something that was there in society but have actually made a huge capital out of it and are making money out of it. And I think I've passed 2/3 of the way now, and it's just really, really fascinating. A fascinating analysis of where we are today in the world. I would definitely highly recommend it, but I would say make time for it because some of these things that she's writing about are really heavy concepts and really, really interesting. And just for me, it's made me think about how I view things and how actually I tend to surround myself with people who think the same way as I do. So I never really see the other side or hear the other side and try and understand why people are thinking the way that they do. For example, this whole immigration issue and people complaining that immigrants are coming to take away their jobs. It's kind of helped me to reflect and made me realize that I need to kind of come out of my echo chamber and actually try and I'm not going to stop the boats, Tayo. I can't do it, and the Conservatives are no longer in power. But yeah, it kind of made me realize that I need to kind of just try and see things from the other perspective and other people's view.
Well, good luck with that, Jackie.
I need it. I know what you mean by saying that, and I do need it. But I guess it helps with, and for her. So Naomi Klein, she actually went out of her way to listen to Steve Bannon's podcasts and sort out all the other right wing podcasts, and sat there and put herself through them. And I think it's actually useful to do that because then it helps you to see what the other what half of the world is thinking, and also it would help, I think it would help you at least when if you had to speak to someone with those views.
Well, as I said, good luck with that. But I didn't know what this your book was about, and now I'm very interested. But because, as you know, for personal reasons, I've spent some time listening to some of these people now who I would never have listened to in the past. And I think that it's all combined with conspiracy theories. And when you talk about an echo chamber, that the people who are following some of these podcasts are also in an echo chamber. And it's a kind of radicalization, in my opinion. But still, I don't know if that's relevant to the book.
No, it does. The book actually does cover all of that, and I do. And when I was reading it, especially some of parts of it, I was thinking of you, Katrina. I'm like, I should have
I'm
read
sure you
this,
were.
Katrina.
But I just think it's a form of radicalization that's going on, and because people are so mistrustful of the mainstream news that we all now realize isn't always telling us everything it should, but they go to the other extreme and then they get sucked into all sorts of people who are much, you know, who make things like the BBC look ultra reliable. Because for some reason, you decide the BBC doesn't tell you the truth, but then you'll listen to a podcast by somebody who you have no idea who they are, and when you try to research them, you well, what I find out about them makes me even less likely to be impressed by their views.
She
But anyway,
she goes on
I worry how many people are involved in all this nowadays.
more than we think.
Oh, I think it's growing. I think what your point about like listening to the other side, yeah, I think it's well worth doing. I think maybe because the role I used to do, I would regularly, I had no choice but to like read publications that I wouldn't necessarily read myself. And then you kind of start to understand the mindset that people have. And even though I don't agree with it myself, sometimes I even know what they're going to say before they say it. Like, you know, the arguments they're going to use, and as weak as you think they are, like, that's the views that people's hold. That's what happened with Brexit, right? They got into Facebook, they identified a group of people, a whole swathe of people who hadn't really engaged, and they played on their emotions. It sounds so like simple, but it was anything but that's what it was. So even like GB News and listening to LBC or like certain radio shows and listen to what people do and phone up, like to this day I can't understand why anybody would have looked at Boris Johnson and thought he was competent, but a lot of people clearly did.
And still do.
Do you know what I mean? And still do, and still think he was the winner. Like, he's got a book out at the moment, so he's being interviewed. I can't remember where it was, and he was just chatting shit.
Unleashed.
Was that it?
But that's what
the
he's
book.
always done, isn't it? Yeah, it's called
And it's what
Unleashed.
but I'm watching it and thinking maybe there's something I'm not getting. Oh, but no, he's being, he's obfuscating. Did I pronounce that word right? Maybe I didn't. Thank you, I did. He's being deliberately, clever with it was textbook him, but people believe that and buy into that. And I think as well, when you like a lot of those, the rage where it's coming from, I do think it's interesting to try and get under the skin of that sometimes. Even a broken clock is right twice a day. And these conspiracies often always start with some element of truth. Like,
Yes, they
course,
resonate somewhere. Sorry,
yeah.
I'm cutting in.
No. That's exactly it. That's it. Something about them feels true.
What I realise from it is whichever side of this sort of issue you favour, I'm just as vulnerable as the opposite side to that sort of confirmation bias that you read something it reinforces what you already think about immigration or anything else. And you, oh yes, that's a good article. That's definitely worth it. And then you read something that would support, even if it's tenuous support, but you can see how somebody else can take from it, and you immediately start dismissing it. I mean, I find that watching the news about Gaza and listening to the Israelis and their justifications, and it is quite hard to listen properly to both sides when you already have a view, and you feel like the one side are ignoring a certain aspect that you want to shout at the television, to heckle them. But of course, the other side of the argument is doing something similar. But you don't notice it so much because you're more sympathetic to that side. So
On Bannon, your point, I watched this is a couple of years ago, but Bannon was interviewed. I think it's like PBS, and there was a long interview with him, and I personally thought he gave probably one of the most best and articulate responses for kind of some of the anger that he's been able to harness. And many ills, not somebody I would ever listen to, but he articulated a dissatisfaction and rage that many working class people might have. And I think it would be, might be very easy to shout that down. And I think he's been very deliberate in taking that and morphing it into something else. But what he was saying was true. But I think the roots of what he was saying were economic. The bunch of people who you work hard and you will be okay. And they've worked hard and they're getting screwed. And they're working hard and their children are getting screwed. And I think if you, in that kind of sense, maybe that's what a lot of people are coming up against. But and then it comes out in all these kind of distortive ways and all these different horrible ways. But there is a sense of that this isn't fair. Like something's not right here. And the other thing I found interesting as well, like I think I've mentioned before, my mum's worked in immigration law for many years, and so I've always like heard like different things, immigration, whatever. And it was interesting to me when Ukraine happened, when Afghanistan, I had some direct experience with that work, and Ukraine, all of a sudden, there was a bunch of people in this country who have never had to contend with this country's immigration system. And it was almost like for the first time they found out, actually, the system isn't that particularly fair, or it can hurt people. Because you had all these stories that I'm just bringing someone from Ukraine. I don't understand why the rules are so harsh. You know, why are they doing this? Are they out to get the... Oh, no, it's always been that harsh. But if you've never had to interact with a system, like, you don't quite understand it. You don't understand how cruel it can be, how it can cut people off. They have no sense of the system and how it's supposed to work. So, of course, if they're not getting something, it's totally unfair. And this is... What am I trying to say? I just think there's this ignorance as well that feeds into it. I just think a lot of people just simply do not know, and they do not know any better.
But they haven't needed to know, though, have they? They haven't needed to know.
So they've made up the story in their mind of what's going on. Or the front of the Daily Mail tells them they're all over here and getting free benefits and Sky TV, so that must be what they're doing, because they don't understand how the system really works.
I was speaking to a friend just before we started recording, and he's currently working for HMRC on a project to upgrade the platform that they use to collect taxes for imports into the UK. And he's basically saying that it costs almost $1 billion now just to upgrade it. And part of the reason why that's causing so much of an issue is because of the different tax rules for goods coming in. Lots of companies have now decided to go and register in Ireland because goods coming from Ireland don't have the same tax requirements. So there's a lot of issues, but we digress from books. So we've read this year that we like, that we want to recommend.
No, it's good. So Doppelganger. I've actually I favorited the audio. It's on my kind of list of
Actually, that's the point. I should listen to it.
I've sometimes I've found, I don't know about you, but where books are quite long and I know I might struggle, audiobook can work quite well.
Maybe I should listen to it.
If you do something regularly, like if you like, you know, you walk to work or something like that, I find it good for that. And sometimes I find actually it kind of helps because it like incentivizes me to get off like a couple of stops earlier and just walk, because I'll just listen to my audiobook as I'm walking to work, and it's quite like a nice calming way to arrive at work.
But do you not make notes as you're reading, especially a book like this, for example? Would you not make notes? Because I feel that if I listen to it, then I would lose that opportunity to actually write things down. Whereas if I'm actually reading it, I'm then making notes as I go along.
So I can make notes if I've so do you remember what was the book we read? Walter Rodney. I listened to that via audio, and I was making notes on my phone as things came up. I was just going, when he says this. So yeah.
But that's pretty heavy non-fiction.
It is a different
though,
way. And I do find with audiobooks, I don't know about you guys, are there any good audiobooks you've listened to? I do. The author does make a difference.
Ty was shouting to tell you one.
Go on.
Glory.
Glory.
Yeah, No Violet Bulawayo.
Do you know what? I had that on... I think I did have... Do you know what I did like 2 days ago? I went through my Kindle and my Audible And all the stuff that I've only listened to or read like 50% of the way through and hadn't got any further, I just got rid of it all.
And Glory was one of them.
Wow.
Yeah, but like not recently, like things that have been sitting on there. Like I first acquired it in like 2021 and I hadn't gotten past it. I kept looking at these things going, I will go back, I will go back. And then I clearly haven't because I've read so many books before. But I'm trying to be a more disciplined reader.
Audio can make a difference though, can't it? Because if you find that you're stuck in the reading, as I was with Glory, when I started to listen, it was just like drinking some really nice, whatever. It just went down smoothly. And also the fact that the person that read it, the woman that read it, is a professional actor,
Yeah.
and she's from the area where it is based. Is it Zimbabwe? So the accents, the way that she does the accents, is so authentic. I mean, even Annette would be proud. I mean, because Annette doesn't like it when people get the tree accent wrong. It puts her off. It was so good. Didn't struggle at all listening to it. Didn't struggle at all. But reading it, it was a struggle.
The reason I don't think I'd like them much is the pace of reading, isn't it? When you read, you can rush, or you can go back and check something, read it more carefully. I feel like you'd lose that with the audio.
Not really. I mean, you can fasten it up if you want the audio to read to you faster, if that's what you want. There's that facility. Although I guess most people, they just keep it at the standard speed, the speed of normal speech. But then again, you can always go back, can't you? Rewind or go back over if you need to pick up, if you've lost your train of thought where you've gotten up to, go back and then go through again. I think it really does help with some books.
It does help with some books, but I think, do you mean that bit of like when you read a line and you go, oh my God, and then you read the line again kind of thing? Did I just read that right?
Hmm.
Yeah, or even maybe you didn't get the full sort of gist of something, or you realize you've kind of missed something, you just need to flick back. Or more often in my case, I want to skim forward a bit because I think there's too much of something going on and I want to know the story.
Katrina's too impatient. I mean, okay, Jackie, you said that you love Kai Miller, and when I was listening to his The Last Warner Woman, it had a certain authenticity to it because he, the author, was reading it, and obviously the way he reads it with his is he from Jamaica? I can't remember
He's
which island
Jamaican.
he's
Yeah.
from. Jamaica?
He's Jamaican.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the kind of the lilt, the accent is there. So when he's reading the characters, it gives that feel as if to say you're there on the island with these, with the protagonist and all the rest of it. It just made it come much more alive than when I read it, listening to him read it. Obviously, when it's not done very well, or if it's abridged, I don't like it if it's abridged. I want the full fat version. But apart from that, it really does add something to it for me.
I think I'll agree with you. It depends on who's actually doing the reading, because there's some books that I've listened to where you have it's male uh, actor or voice whatever reading it, but then when they try to do the woman's voice, they actually try and put up the pitch of their voice so they sound like a woman, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you know what? Just read the book in your normal voice. Yeah. So sometimes I find things like that frustrating about audio,
Mm.
but I don't do very much audio because I fall asleep.
Really?
I do.
Okay. All right. Another book then I have been listening. Actually, I'm following it by audiobook. Is MBS, The Rise to Power of Mohammed bin Salman.
That'd be
Interesting.
interesting.
Okay.
Very interesting. Just
Yeah, I'd like to listen to that at some point.
it's it just seems otherworldly.
It's on
It
Audible.
would do.
Huh?
It's on Audible.
Yeah, it's on Audible, or if you're on Spotify, don't think I know I'm listening to this one through Spotify, but I'm not listening to this one in one go for whatever reason. I'm just doing bit by bit when I'm around my flat. But yeah, it's just as Machiavellian as it gets, right?
That would be an interesting read.
But when you
Yeah,
say
just the whole.
Machiavellian, you're talking about the politics, because I thought you're talking about the extreme uber wealth.
I'll talk about the politics, and I'm talking about him.
Okay.
If you, not to say that I'm any great expert, because I'm not, but it's explained quite well. If you look at the, and actually there was a documentary on BBC recently as well that talks about him. But if you look at how far removed he was from the throne, and how just through striking at the opportune moments he's got himself into this most powerful position, it's
I don't know very much about him, so I'll definitely check out the documentary.
lots of wealth, but it feels like it's more than that. But yeah, he's clearly got his tentacles, and he's not going to be moved for a very long time.
Anyway, coming back to books, there's only one more book that I think I'd really like to give a shout out at.
Okay.
And that's the one we read for the book club, but we did not discuss in the podcast. And that's Worcestershire, Teaching My Mother How to Give Birth. It's a collection of poems. That was a great, great read. And I think we'll add her second collection of poems back to the reading list for next year. The right one, seeing as I added the wrong one last time. So yeah, but that was a really, really good read.
I was gutted I missed that one.
Yeah, that was good. That was good.
And I think I messaged you afterwards and said, how did people find it?
You did.
Yeah. Where did I come across that? So I was working at UCL, and they had this project about decolonizing the canon. The idea being that you've got this canon of English literature and it's all samey. So if we were to decolonize it, who were the writers you'd have? And as you go up to the main library in UCL, on every stair is a title of this decolonized canon. And her book is on one of those stairs. So I'd be going up to the library and I'd always see it. And I'd always, I've read that one, interesting, I'll read that type of thing. And then that's the first time I came across it.
Yeah. She's good. She's now I think based in either the US or Australia. I think she's in the US.
Yeah, she's in America.
Her poems are so accessible. I normally struggle with poems, but I just found her writing so accessible. She says very much in very few words.
Yeah.
So absolutely enjoyed that.
I'm not sure about the new collection. I'm not sure that I enjoy it as much as the old one. I was thinking maybe you should add the Kay Miller book of poetry.
Oh, the cartographer. Well, we have 4, don't we? We add 4. I'll add 4 onto the list, and then people can choose.
Okay.
Cartographer tries to map a way to Zion is a very small book. It's how many pages? 72.
Okay.
And yeah, each page has a poem. It's very short.
But the first Worcestershire book was also very small.
It was about 30 something pages, I think.
Yeah, it still packed a punch.
Oh God, it did. It's funny. I read the book about Audre Lorde, right? That is over 400 pages, right?
Oh yeah.
And I feel like
No, I'm
I think
saying. Oh yeah, I remember you mentioned this one.
yeah,
About her life.
Yeah, survive was something.
Optional.
Anyhow, if I compare, I mean, yes, it's got her poems, it's got writing about her. But if I compare what I took out of reading Worcestershire and reading this book about Audre Lorde with its 468 pages, there's just no comparison. Absolutely none. Yeah. So yeah, some books are like that.
Which biography did we read this year?
Afoi's memoir.
Oh, that's the one that won.
Yeah.
You're kidding me.
Which one?
Yeah. Afoi, decolonizing my body.
Because there was
You 50 Cent. There was a 50 Cent. There was Kalachi. Yeah.
I put 50 Cent.
Yeah, we know you put 50.
So there were 4. There was Kalachi. There was 50 Cent. There was Afua Hirsch and Small by Small.
Okay, right, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a shame. I picked that 50 Cent book because where was I? I think I was in a salon, and that audio book was playing, and everyone was just
Enthralled.
Just just listen to he's got the the patter about it, the gangster life, whatever. But it's when he tells the stories behind it. He's clearly not an idiot, and he's clearly been through some stuff. So I thought it'd be interesting, but I also suspected people would go 50 Cent, roll eyes. I'm not reading a book about 50 Cent.
Put it forward again.
But I think Diane Abbott will probably win.
I think
Simply because it's Diane Abbott.
yeah, and
Are you winking, Jackie?
so she's my MP. She was my MP for
Can I
many
put my
years.
camera back on so you can see whether or not I'm winking?
I think Diane Abbott is.
No, I think she probably will, particularly with what's happened in the past year.
Yeah, you won't have to swing it. She'll win, I'm sure.
She'll win. She'll win. David Lammy was profiled yesterday on Radio 4.
He was, yeah. I caught the tail end of that.
He's really made it,
Tottenham
hasn't he?
boy, rah rah rah.
Scholarship boy, first black British to study at Harvard. Was it to study law or just to study at Harvard full
I think
stop?
youngest minister as well. Was it 27 or 37 or something?
Yeah. So
Yeah, too young.
he's done well.
I remember when he was going out with June Sapong.
Was he?
Yeah.
June's got a new imprint out publishing African books.
Actually, what
Did
is
you
it?
know that?
I knew she was doing something. I didn't know it was book publishing. I know she's kind of.
I think the first publication is due out next year.
What book did she?
I don't know. I can't remember.
Jackie, have we ever read a recipe book?
No, but we read one based on a recipe in How to Cook My Husband the Something Way. No, we haven't read a recipe book. You want to read a recipe book?
No.
Why? Why such a strong no?
Because what's the point of reading if you're not cooking it? And I'm not cooking it, so.
It's fair enough.
Okay, fair enough.
Taiwo, you're on your own. Katrina, do you want to read a recipe book?
I wouldn't mind, but I'm not. It's got to have something, there can be recipes, but it's got to have a bit more to it than just recipes, please.
Okay, I'll try and.
I did put forward, remember, maybe last year, was it last year or a couple of years ago, I put forward a Longthroat Diaries.
Oh, put it up again. Put it forward again.
But I wasn't actually thinking of that when I was thinking of recipes. I was thinking of that. There's a new book out, isn't there? Something about vegan Africana or vegan African or something.
No, I've not heard of that.
Not heard of it.
Vegan African cook. What's the remit of the book club again? What are the parameters?
African writers. Oh no, not African writers. Black writers. Sorry. Or if it's a really compelling book written by a non-black person, it has to be about black issues. Yeah, but I think we've covered a lot of ground. We've
It's a long time though since we've read any crime books.
I was thinking just that the other day.
Or like Walter Mosley or someone.
And I don't like Walter Mosley though. But then I was thinking that I'm just thinking, we just don't really have that many.
Oh, what about the other one that I mentioned the last time, Jackie?
Which was what? Make a note and just send me a list, Iowa, because I write things down and then I forget where I've written them. If you send them
All right, I'll
by
have to email it
email,
to you.
I think I'm much more likely to compile them somewhere in a note somewhere.
There's a series I heard about that called Sam Dean. Have you heard of him? It's a novel that it's fiction, detective kind of stories. They're written by Mike Phillips, who's apparently related to Trevor Phillips. So I read one because I heard them talk about it on a program. I don't know. I was okay with it, but it a bit reminded me of there was something else that was a bit racy, sort of detective thing that everybody thought was awful. So I hesitate to put it forward. But if you want a detective, the first one is called Blood Rights, and there's a few others. I've only read that one.
How about murder mysteries? I want a murder mystery.
Oh, you guys don't like. What about YA?
I don't mind YA.
S.A. Cosby, that's it.
S.A. Cosby.
Razor Blade Tears or Blacktop Highway. He's supposed to be really good. S.A. Cosby, Black American.
We haven't read an American writer this. Have we read an American writer this year? Anyhow, I've just realized the time, guys. I think I've kept you long enough.
Yeah.
It's been interesting hearing about all the other books. I've discovered a few new writers. Definitely going to check out Before the Coffee Gets Cold and Elizabeth Strout. And the Algerian book is definitely going on the list because that sounds really interesting.
Oh, good, because I don't know if I sort of talked it up enough for other people. It's also not very long. It's 140 pages, so that might be attractive to some people. But it's well written.
It's a book about books, so I think that would get a lot of interest.
Yeah, but the Algerian background is also, I found very interesting because I don't know, you kind of know it was awful, but you don't know much. And it doesn't go into massive detail, but it does give you a little bit more than I knew before. So yeah, I highly recommend it.
What's it called again?
A book in English, it's called A Bookshop in Algiers. In French, it was called Nos Richesses, Our Riches. In real life, the bookshop was called Nos Richesses.
Okay.
Anyhow, I think we shall call it an evening. So just really want to say thank you very much for the random musings on books. And yeah, we'll speak next month. If not,
Okay.
Nice chatting. Thank you
Stay
again,
warm,
Jackie.
everyone.
thank you. Speak soon.
As we close the book on yet another year, I want to take a moment to express my gratitude to you, our loyal listeners. Thank you for joining us month after month, for engaging with our content, and for sharing your thoughts and your perspectives. Your support really means a lot to us. The past year has been an incredible journey, filled with thought-provoking discussions, insightful reviews, and engaging interviews. It's been a privilege to experience this with you. Looking ahead to the new year, we have even more exciting plans in store, so mark your calendars, set your reminders, and get ready to join us in 2025. Thank you once again for your support, and here's to an amazing year ahead. Happy New Year!